Hi guys, welcome back. This is part 2 of our review of chapter 3. Can you believe it? Chapter 3 already. My goodness. So today we'll finish up our review. I'll go over a few more terms and show you a few more pictures to remind you of what they are. And then tomorrow we'll have our test. And then we will be finished with chapter 3 and get to move on to chapter 4. Alright, so let's get started. So our first term is term. Now, not the term that explains a word, but a term that talks about how long a president can be president. So let's see. Presidents serve one term at a time. Well, how long is one term? One term is 4 years. And then after those 4 years, then they have another election. Okay? So George Washington, after 4 years, they had an election and he won again. So he got to have 2 terms. So because he had 2 terms and each term is 4 years, how many years was he president? 8 years, that's right. Not every president gets to be a president for 8 years. You either get 1 term or 2 terms. So you're either 4 years or 8 years, depending on if you get elected or not. So George Washington did. He got elected for 2 terms, so he had 8 years. Now, do you remember John Adams? How many terms was John Adams president? 1 term. So how many years was he president? 4 years. That's right. So now, presidents are only allowed to serve 2 terms for a total of 8 years. Now, back when George Washington was president, that wasn't a rule. That wasn't a law yet. But George Washington set it as a precedent that they should only be 2 years. And all the way up through the 1900s, they followed that precedent until one president, which we'll get to later on in our studies about how that happened. All right, so that is terms. Good job. All right, we went over this one yesterday, but we're going to go over it again. Political parties. What was a political party? A group of people who tried to gain power in the government. That's right. Do you remember who the first 2 political parties were? They were the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. That's right. Those are the first 2 political parties. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. Okay. The next term we have is Electoral College. Now, is this where we go to college like I'm going to college? No. Now, Electoral College is people who represent each state and will vote to choose the next president. And here is the chart that I had showed you guys before. There we go. Make sure I can get this in there for you. All right. Okay. Here we go. So, first, the people vote. There we go. The people vote at each state in each state for who they want to be president, and then the electors from the Electoral College from that state, whatever the people voted for in the state, whichever candidate they voted for the most, that's who the electors of that state will vote for. And then in the election, each state has their electors vote, and then whichever electors get the most, that's who wins the election. Okay? And that is what happens in the first election with George Washington. Do you remember how many electors voted for him? All of them. That's right. And then in the second election with John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, do you remember how many electors, did all of the electors vote for John Adams? No. How many did not vote for him? Actually, we're not for sure of that. I'm sorry. That's not right. That wasn't the right question. How many did he win by? That's what it was. He won by 3 electoral votes. That's right. Okay, so back to our political parties. We had 2 political parties at the time. We had the Federalists, which you can see, let me get it right here, right above me. Okay, remember we learned about them. They were mainly the Northerners. They were mainly from the North. They wanted America to be powerful in banking and trading. They were very big on businesses, okay, not farming, but businesses. So they wanted America to be wealthy through banking and through trading. And they also wanted to go to war with France. Now, do you remember who was a part of that political party? Right, John Adams was. He was part of that political party. Now, the other political party was the Democratic Republicans, right here. They wanted America to be a nation of farmers. They wanted America to focus more on the farming and producing food than they wanted them to focus on banking and trading. And they also did not like the wealth from the banks and the trade because they thought it was going to divide our country into the very rich and the very poor, which they thought was very unequal. Okay? So the Democratic Republicans thought that the wealth from the banks and the trade would make the Americans unequal to each other, and they didn't think that was fair. And then finally, they did not want to go to war with France. Okay? Those were some of the ideas that they had in theirs. All right? And then we also talked about this on Tuesday, but it's still important, was John Adams. Okay? To review with him, he was the second president. He won that second election. But I think one of the biggest things with him for today that I want you to remember about him was, remember that law he signed about the newspapers printing and writing in their papers about the government and the leaders of the country? What did he say? Did he say that they could? No, he said they couldn't. He passed a law that said that they were not allowed to say anything about the government or the leaders of our country. And we talked about this on Tuesday also. Is that constitutional? Is that fair? No, that's taking away our right to free speech. And that law did go away after John Adams was president anymore. All right? Okay. All right, so then the next three kind of go together. They are the national government, they are the local government, and the state government. So let's do the national one first, okay? So the national government, what are the three parts? What is the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch of the national government? Well, you have the president, you have Congress, and then you have the courts, okay? Then, for the state level, you have the governor, you have the legislature, and you have courts. Okay. Then, for the local level, which is on the city or in the county, you have a mayor, the city council, and the courts. And remember, here's the chart that we went over. Okay, right in here. So our executive branch for each one is the president, the governor, and the mayor. The legislative branch for each one was the Congress, the legislature, and the city council. And then for the judicial branch, they all have courts. Now, the national would be the United States of America. The state would be, for an example, the state of Florida. Okay? And the local would be the city like West Palm Beach, or Lake Worth, or Boynton Beach, or Wellington, or Royal Palm Beach, or Lake Worth. Any of those would be examples of local. Or the county that we live in, which is Palm Beach County. That would also be a local one. Okay? So we talked about those ones. All right? Okay. Now, the next two words also go together. They are capital and capital. Well, that's the same word. Do you remember what the difference between those two words was? It was one letter. One of them had an O, and the other one had an A. Do you remember which one was which? Well, the one with an O, Capitol, was the main building where a government conducts business. Okay, it's just a building. It's the name of the building where the government has their meetings, where they discuss things, where they talk about things, where they make laws, where they vote on laws, where they have all kinds of things going on. That is the building, and that's with an O. Okay? The capital with an A, you see the underlined A there, is the main city where the government of a state or country is located. All right, so that's the city. So A, if it has an A in it, it means it's the city. If it has an O in it, it means it's the building. Okay? So here we had this example. All right? Let me do this if I can do this right. Here we go. Okay. Did I do it right? Nope, I did it wrong. Okay. I always get my fingers maxed up. I'm sorry. Here is the Capitol building, okay? The Capitol building has an O. Just the building is Capitol with an O. This whole page is Washington, D.C.'s the city. This is Capital with an A. All right, so the city of Washington, D.C. is with an A. The building is with an O. All right, so an example of Capitol would be the Capitol building, where the Congress meets and makes laws and talks about the laws. Capital with an A, an example of that would be Washington, D.C., or you could even say the state capital. What is the capital of Florida? Tallahassee. So Tallahassee is a city where the state's government is together. So that would be an example of Capital with an A, Tallahassee, or Washington, D.C. Okay? All right. Now we also talked about farewell address. All right. Who gave the farewell address? George Washington did. That's right. And what did we say it was? It was his goodbye speech. Yes, this was his goodbye speech. This is where he explained to the people why he wouldn't be president anymore, and it's also where he gave advice to the country on how they could be successful in the future. Okay. All right, last word for today is territory. Kind of only talked about this once. Territory. We talked about this when the Americans were moving out west. They were leaving their local and state government. They were going to a territory. That's right. A territory is land that is owned by the national government, but it doesn't have a state government and it doesn't have a local government. It only has the national government. There's no state or local government there. So the people who moved to these territories, they had to find a way to work out things on their own without a state and local government. So they had to figure out how to work together with their community, with the people in their community. Eventually, all of the territories that were in the United States became states. But until then, they didn't have a state or local government. Okay? So those are all of the words that we needed to review and all the different concepts and things that we've had, that we talked about. So here is your, let me get that closer for you. Oh, that's kind of really, there we go. Okay. There is your review paper, your review sheet for today. Okay. This is pretty much just filling in the blanks. So number one, George Washington set a precedent that a president should serve only how many terms? And then you can write it in there. Or you can just put the number 1 and write the answer. Okay. The number 2, a group of people that tries to gain power in government is called a political. Figure that one out. Number 3, a group who chooses the President of the United States is the. Now notice there's 2 blanks there. That means there's 2 parts to that answer. 2 words for that answer. Number 4, Federalists wanted the United States to be powerful in trading and something that would make money. Number 5, Democratic Republicans believed that wealth made people. What was the wealth and the money going to do to the American people? What did they think would happen to the American people? It would make them something. Number 6, Democratic Republicans wanted the United States to be a nation of. What did they want them to focus the nation on? Number 7, newspapers started supporting what kind of parties? That kind of caused John Adams to write that bill that he had, or to make that law that he had. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have there? Number 8, John Adams signed a law that made it against the law to write about the government in the what? Now, numbers 9, 10, 11, and 12. This is where you get into the types of government that we talked about. Number 9, it has a governor, a legislature, and courts to govern it. What type of government is that? The national government, the state government, or the local government? Number 10 has a mayor, courts, and sometimes the city council. Is that the national, the state, or the local government? 11 has a president, Congress, and courts. Is that the national, the state, or the local government? And number 12 governs a county or a city and a state. Is that the national, state, or local government? All right. So that is your review sheet for today. Fill those out. You don't have to print it. You can just write them on a piece of paper and send it to your teacher, and we will mark you off. That will be a participation grade. And if you get any wrong, we'll let you know which ones you have wrong so that you can study for it for the test tomorrow, all right, for what you're going to have to do for your test tomorrow. If you have any questions on any of these terms or any of these concepts or anything we've talked about, please email us and let us know. I want you to make sure that you understand all of the things that we talked about so that you are ready for the test tomorrow. Okay, guys? All right. Miss you, and I cannot wait to see you guys and give you all real hugs, not just air hugs and prayers and stuff. I do give you guys prayers and all, but I would love to be able to give you guys hugs. So hopefully I'll be seeing you soon. And if you need anything, just give me a call or just email me. All right? Okay, guys. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow.